I just want to welcome all the family and friends. We have before us a very special opportunity, the mitzvah, to show our thankfulness, our reverence, our appreciation, our honor for a very special woman, our most beloved Ilean Kulkin. She was a beautiful mother and sister and grandmother and daughter and friend and a most loved neighbor to many of those in this community. There are some amazing things about her as a person. She had incredible strength, she had incredible wisdom, she had incredible courage, she had a true kindness in her heart, and she had the ability to build a beautiful family, her children and her grandchild and further generations. She had a very special gift. There was something very unique and different about her. You looked into her eyes and you saw a woman who just wasn't the regular cut of person. She was a very cut of special type of person. In her abilities, in her wants, she had a higher awareness of the world. She didn't just see what you and I would see in front of us. She saw a much bigger, broader picture. She saw a lot of depth in this world, not just the small things, but the big things and the little things that mattered the most. So today, with your help, we all sit here on her behalf to honor her. And we feel strongly that the reason why she's here in particular is not just to honor her, but because she can hear our words. We want her to hear what a special person she was and is to us. We want her to know that all the great deeds that she did, all her great effort, was not forgotten and will forever be remembered. We want these words to go into our hearts as a beautiful thing of thanks from our mouths. I share this pulpit with Cantor Kathy Sibo, who will begin with us the 23rd Psalm, first in Hebrew, then followed by the translation in English.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, minoteh sheyarbitzeni al me menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi yishovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגצל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן neged tsurirai dishanta vashemen roshi kosiri vaya ach tov chesed yerdifuni kol yamei chayai בשבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. I invite you to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
It's also our custom to recite the Eishes Chayil, which is a section from the Proverbs, and it goes in the order of the alphabet, and lists the qualities of a special woman, a woman of valor. Eishes Chayil miyimsa v'rachok mipnei michra batach balev bala v'shala lo yakzar Gemal su toiv eloira, kol yemei chayecha, darshet zemer ufishtim, bitas bechapetz kapecha. Haisa kani oisaicher, mi merchak tavi lachma, bitacham bia haylaila, titin teref levesa v'chayk narosecha, zamama sade bitikachechu, mi pricha pechanata karem, hagra beyois masnecha, betame zroesecha, tama kitay sachra, lo yechve belayla, neira yedecha shilcha v'kishar, v'kapecha samchu fale, kappa parseliani, ve'yadecha shilcha li evyon lo sira levesa mishaleg, ki kol beisa levushanim, marbadi masisala, sheish vargaman levusha, noida bisharim bala, bishifto ihim zikne yaret sadi masisa v'timkar, v'chaganas no knani, oiz v'hadar levusha, bitischak liyoy macharoin, bicha pascha v'hachma, v'sayras chesed al yishoin al zefia halicha ispesa, v'lecha matzis l'sochel, kam uvanecha v'yashura, bala, Vayehalala Rabos Panosas Ochayil Viatali Sakulana Sheker Achein Vehevel Ayoifi Isha Yiras Adonai Hisis Halel Tenula Mi Priyadecha Vihalalucha Vishari Masecha. An accomplished woman who can find? Far beyond pearls is her value. Her husband's heart relies on her, and he shall lack no fortune. She repays his good, but never his harm, all the days of her life. She seeks out wool and linen, and her hands work willingly. She is like a merchant's ship. From afar she brings sustenance. She rises well as yet nighttime, and gives food to her household. She envisions a field and buys it. From the fruit of her handiwork she plants a vineyard. With strength she girds her loins, and invigorates her arms. She discerns her enterprise is good. Her lamp is not stuffed out by the night. Her hands she stretches out to the distaff, and her palms support the spindle. She spreads out her palm to the poor, and extends her hands to the destitute. She fears not snow for her household, for her entire household is clothed with scarlet wool. Luxurious bedspreads she makes herself, linen and purple wool are her clothing. She makes a cloak to sell, and delivers a belt to the peddler. Strength and majesty are her raiments. She joyfully awaits the last day. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and a lesson of kindness is on her tongue. She anticipates the ways of her household, and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise, and they praise her. Her husband, he lauds her. Many daughters have amassed achievement, but you have surpassed them all. False is grace, and vain is beauty. A God-fearing woman, she should be praised. Give her the fruits of her hands, and let her be praised in the gates by her very own deeds. For me, it is a tremendous honor to be here in this position, to be able to say a few words about our Ilean. And the reason I can say this is not because I knew her as a result of a clergy relationship for years and years and years. It was really, in fact, I only knew her for 20 minutes. A total of 20 minutes in our lives coincided. But there are some people who can accomplish so much in 20 minutes, you feel like you really, really have known them for many a year. So I was doing my rounds in University Hospital, and there's this person on my list, someone named Ilean Kulkin. You just walk in the door, just cold. You don't really know this person. You don't know the circumstances. I see a concerned daughter. I see a patient in the bed. But usually when people are sick, it takes some time, to get them going, to get them talking. You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to kind of wake them up. And you have to be a little bit outgoing and kind of speak out, get them to speak up a little bit. And usually, by the time the medications have kicked in, and the surgery recovery, and the disease, and all the people coming in and out, they're nice to the rabbi when he comes in, but usually they only have a couple minutes, and they certainly don't have what they want to accomplish with you. But walking into the room of Ilean was a totally different experience. As soon as I walk in, she was like, "I'm so glad to see you." And I really feel like she'd been waiting for me, for days and days and days. It's like nothing mattered, but the rabbi was visiting. She'd already mentioned to some of the staff members she wanted the rabbi to visit, But I really, myself, felt very respected and very, very honored, an honor I didn't deserve. And with her, she got straight to the chase. She knew I was busy. She respected my time. And she proceeded to what she probably had in her head, which was a list of important things. As we'll see later, she was a lady who was very organized. And she probably had been thinking for a long time various questions that she knows she should ask. The questions you should ask a spiritual person. You should ask yourself when the time comes. And she was so real with what was going on with her. She was wondering, why is this happening to me? Did I do something wrong? Is there something I still need to work on? Is it perhaps my fault? Is there something you can help me with? Is something I should do for my family? The most amazing things. And so as a rabbi, as a person, my first instinct was just to sit down and say, oh my goodness, you have so many questions, Let's just talk about the weather, Let me just have an easier conversation like I would often have with people. But you could just tell from her eyes that she had this fire in her eyes that it was really, really important that she worked on this. And we, of course, talked and we went through the things. And the bottom line was that she was a tremendously good person. And what she was feeling, her worries and her fears that she wasn't good enough, was just her trying to be the best person she possibly could be. And for me, I had this amazing feeling in working with her, in talking with her rather, is that it wasn't like I was talking with her and telling her things to make her feel better. It was like the two of us were connecting. We ourselves looked at this complex world that we live in and all the problems that we carry, both of us, and all the pain of living, and we both felt some ease and some strength. And I told her that she's very strong, and I reassured her that she really knows what she needs to do, and of course she said, no, I don't think so. But I really believed it. And I didn't get a chance to see her again, but I just had a feeling that she was okay. That she had done all the spiritual work, she had done all the physical work, certainly, and she had prepared herself, for the difficult road that lay ahead of her. And so for me, when I sat with the family a few days ago, it was many days because of the holidays that were intervening. And when I got a chance to learn about her life and to see this person in depth, it all made sense. It all made sense how this person could be so strong and so courageous at a time that was so hard because who she was the rest of her life, the rest of her 85 years of life. So what I want to share with you now is, thanks to the family, thanks to her wonderful son and daughter, her daughter-in-law, her grandson, her extended family, thanks to their stories and their sharing with me, that I can paint a picture of who she is. So her life in the beginning was not very easy. It started out with a lot of different challenges. Her family was in the Coventry neighborhood of Cleveland Heights, which, as we know, was a very, very rich Jewish neighborhood with a lot of hustle and bustle and a lot of things going on, a lot of different kinds of people in different places. She had a mother who had to work very hard, long hours, to bring money home for the family. Meanwhile, Ilean was at home, and she had an incredible knack to be the ultimate balabusta at just a young age. Many times, kids of her age, they just want to go play with friends, they want to do their own thing, but there was something inside of Ilean that was different. She had this instinct that just the home is where she belonged. She felt that the home was something that needed her, and she needed to be there. She needed to make sure that everything was cleaned and organized and set up. And of course, she had aspirations. She had many things she wanted to do, and she did those things. She was a good student. She was good with other things, but she had a great pride and joy about the home that she had, even at a very young age. Much of this had to do with the fact that she had many good role models. In particular, she had her grandmother, Gisela, who was a European woman, and herself, was a beautiful homemaker. And through her grandmother and her mother, it was really inculcated in her the importance of the home, but most importantly, the importance of the people in the home, the family that she shared. And so when her sister came along, when Adrian came along, when Ilean was 11 years old, she really was her little mother in many senses. She let her sister tag along with her, and they went on errands, they went to see her friends, but given the large age difference, she gave her advice, she gave her direction, and she really tried to take care of her. And it was really, I guess, Adrian's sense of humor, Adrian's sense of adventure that gave some challenges to Ilean, that really tested her little mother abilities, but she came out really shining despite those tests. And in fact, it was perhaps those years of testing the mother-daughter, sister relationship that today Adrian and Ilean became such good friends, as well as great sisters. She attended Heights High School, and she graduated just around 1950. Things in her life turned in a big way, and made a very big change when her husband-to-be, Nathan, came along just a few years later. They were a perfect match in every possible way. The first day that they had talked on the telephone, they talked on the telephone for almost the entire day. And I guess in those days it really counted. You had to pay for every minute of the phone call. So when you sit on the phone for hours upon hours, it's not like it is today. But they never ran out of things to talk about, things to share, things to connect about. And as you'll see later in her life, the number 3 is a very big number. Things happened fast for Ilean. So it turned out that 3 weeks later, after meeting Nathan, they would become a match. They became engaged. And it was 3 months later that they became married. But really, it wasn't really meant to be in 3 months, as we'll see later. Things happened a little faster. She was able to change the time clock a little bit. And it was really a beautiful match, not only because they were so similar for each other, but the mothers, Nathan's mother, as well as Ilean's mother, they played match together, and they lived just a few streets away, and they sort of grew up together in many ways. But in those days, when you had to make a wedding, it was a lot of stuff. You didn't make a simple short wedding. You had to have dresses and caterers and synagogues, and you had to have music, and you had to have a whole sorts of things. So obviously it wasn't atypical to say, you know what, the soonest we can get married is in about a year or so, by the time I get through my laundry list of all things I have to do. But Ilean was determined. She and Nathan were going to become a couple sooner than anyone else in those times, with all the traditional things that they had to do, would do so. So she impressed her family because in just a few days, she made all the phone calls to the synagogue, the caterer, the dresses. It was all done in a warp speed amount of time. Her dream became possible, and she and Nathan's wedding date was on the calendar 3 months later in 1955. So they, as I said, were a great personality, not just in the beginning, but going forward. They really were those couples, wasn't a couple, that didn't fight. And even if sometimes they had disagreements, they had a very hard agreement that if we disagreed on something, we would make sure that we made up at nighttime and we wouldn't go to sleep angry. We would kiss and we'd say goodnight, and we would make it like it never happened, and the next day could be a brand new day. And her goal was to really make sure that Nathan had a good home. She did everything to make his home beautiful and clean and orderly. And he, in turn, did his job. He worked very hard. He was a very hard worker. And the family said that he was such a hard worker that if it wasn't for him passing away earlier than it was perhaps thought or hoped, he would have been working to this very day, taking care of her financial needs no matter what. And he knew how perfect she was at home, how happy she was to be at home, and that was his commitment, to make sure that she could do so. And she, in return, made sure that every night when he came home, he had a formal dinner. He had a salad. He had a main course. Nothing was ever rushed, and there was no such thing as fast food in their family. And she was not a lady who was anything about herself. She was a simple, plain person. She didn't wear too much makeup. She didn't wear too much jewelry. She didn't drive. She was just happy with the most simple of lives. And also the fact that he was 13 years older than her could have been a difficult thing. A couple that has such a big difference in age could sometimes be difficult to get through some of the different approaches and experiences and the different times that you grew up. But not for them. She really let him be an inspiration and a guide, and they both really guided each other and taught each other in the ways of life. They really learned life together at their different ages. And many people would ask, at this point, like, okay, well, what did she like to do? And just as a joke, but it really told who she was, that her favorite hobby was washing clothes. So she had mastered every aspect of the clothing, the correct amount of detergent, the correct amount of times, etc. And there was a joke around the family that when it came time to buying a washing machine, there was no way that you could buy her washing machine unless it had an extended warranty. It would be impossible for a normal, naturally created washing machine to last under her care, because she was simply constantly washing and washing and washing, making sure that every single item of clothing was perfectly clean and ready when they had it. So early on, they had a house, and they lived in Bushnell in University Heights. But her husband was a record producer, or in the record industry, and he had an opportunity to move to Woodland Hills, California. And so she went along with him, and it was not an easy move. She was very lonely. She missed her sister. She missed her family and her friends, but it was something that she needed to do with her husband. But at that time, she could see that after some time in Los Angeles, that LA was becoming a little bit too crazy, and it wouldn't be the best influence on her husband and her family that she really wanted. So they decided it was time to come back to Cleveland. So somehow they were able to get the record business, move it to Cleveland, and continue their lives here. And those were good. Those were good times coming back to Cleveland and being back with the family. And when Mom wasn't doing her housework, she was perfectly great at having a good time with the kids. She knew how to have fun. She knew how to play games. She knew how to take care of her kids, do the homework, make sure that they were happy. And she was an interesting person because, like I said, she had grown up, she had her own personal sense of the importance of the home and staying simple, staying at home. But at the same time, she had kids who were very motivated. They were very idealistic. They really wanted to do things that were new and different that hadn't been done before. And so as much as it wasn't always easy for her to understand that, perhaps she didn't always automatically understand the instinct of how important it is to have a job outside of the home and doing all these big outside world things. But this is really an example of how much she could grow. She really adapted herself, she really grew, and she really came to understand her kids' needs and what they wanted to do, and she became one of the biggest supporters of their dreams in becoming who they are today. And I was asking Terry, I noticed that there was an ambulance outside, and it looks like everyone's pretty healthy here, and it does say Rainbow Pediatric. And so Terry explained to me that, when Terry's a nurse and she works in acute care in Rainbow, and that as time went on, a lot of the people she was working with, the ambulance drivers and the critical care nurses, they became very important to Mom. Mom wanted to make sure that they grew and they developed and they were happy and successful. And so, so again, that's connected to my point of where she really was so connected to her children, and she really watched and connected with their growth thereafter. But you'd think with all this washing and all this domestic duties that she had, that she didn't always have so much time for fun. But it was quite the contrary. She loved to go on cruises once a year. And when you go on a cruise, I've never been on a cruise, but I think there's probably those people who just have a good time and just whatever happens, happens. Someone grabs me for some shuffleboard, someone grabs me for some eating, someone grabs me for some music, I'll go along, whatever. But there really has to be an organizer. There has to be a person who kind of suggests to the family what you should do. And that was her. She was the ultimate cruise organizer, making sure that people were on time and people knew what they could do to have the funnest time that they could. And you really had to picture this woman who was very focused on what she had to do, but she was also the lady who was still dancing with her husband on the dance floor until 4 o'clock in the morning. And the same thing was true on her block, that she was really the social link. I imagine a lot of people are here perhaps because of the neighborhood. And we'll see later on, but she was one of those people who was on the block for so long, and she got to meet a lot of different people as they were coming in over the years. And her being there so long allowed her to connect to many people of different generations. And she was the social link for the block. She would get people playing around, hanging out together and understanding together. And she also would give advice for people on the block. And I was told by her family that, she had very good windows, and her windows looked out just perfectly onto the block. And that if there was a lady across the street and she was kind of organizing her room and putting the lampshade over here and the picture over there, but it just really wasn't working perhaps, too much dark, too much miscoordination, she would spot it from her window, and that she was the one who would make a phone call to the neighbor across the street. I couldn't help notice that, your picture is just not really where I think it should be. But she obviously had a lot of grace that she was able to pull it off. And so, I don't want to be, at all, implying that she was a boring person, that just to be a person who's very much focused on the home doesn't make you boring in any way at all. And this is the point of these stories. But one of my favorite stories about how she wasn't boring whatsoever was something that happened later in her life. Her kids had grown up, they had, moved on, and it was just herself and Nathan in the house. And just like a lot of people of their age, they decided, it's time to downsize. Pretty soon we're going to need a smaller house, we're going to need a ranch, we're going to need a one-story. You're going to have minimize the steps. We're going to have to make sure it's simple and smaller and easy to keep up. And so I don't want to get any of the details wrong, but just to make a long story short, that she fell in love with this home. At that time, Lyndhurst, just off of Richmond on Ledgewood Trail, was a bunch of apple orchards, and it was really a new area of development. And she fell in love with this house, 1018 Ledgewood Trail. And this house was quite big. You'll see, if you're going to go to the Shiva, you'll see the house. It's a couple stories, it's got a lot of rooms, it's got a lot of steps. It's not the ideal situation for people who are thinking of downsizing or coming of age. And perhaps that was the one real disagreement that she had with her husband. He felt we need to simplify. She felt this was the house of her dreams. And that might have been the one night where they didn't go to sleep with the perfect kiss and the perfect, forgiveness. They kissed that night, but they probably didn't necessarily make up. But that was just one night. So the next day, she was going to be meeting with the realtor, and she was kind of moving forward on these plans. But of course, her beloved Nathan wasn't exactly where she was in the process. But he knew that she'd be meeting with the realtor the next day at 12 o'clock. I'm not sure if it was to sign papers, but maybe it was just to move things along a little bit. And it seemed like he was upset. He didn't want this to happen, and he was maybe keeping quiet about it. So the next day came. It was just about 12 o'clock. It was about 11:50. She was ready to wait for the realtor to come, and look who shows up. Nathan shows up. He walks in the house. He opens the door, and he sees immediately, wow, look at this. This is a big house. This is much bigger than I want. Too many bedrooms, too many steps. But look, there's a laundry room right next to the entrance. And so after all those years of his wife's hobby of laundry making, going down all those stairs to the basement or up to the attic, I don't remember where her laundry machines were, he realized this is going to make a gigantic change in my wife's life. She's going to have a laundry room on the same level as the entrance. And he completely melted, and he completely, fell in love, perhaps. Love is a little strong, in terms of this new house. So that, again, showed that she was no boring lady, and he was a wonderful man and a wonderful husband. So I don't, the risk of being too lengthy, I just want to say a little bit, if I can, about her family. You're going to hear soon from her son and from her daughter, but some of the things that I feel like I would enjoy sharing. The fact that she got to her age, as a strong lady, wasn't just a coincidence. She really got to be how long as she was, with the help of her husband, with the help of her kids, and her extended family, her daughter-in-law and her grandson. Her husband died 21 years ago, and it was truly a very, very devastating loss for her. And that followed by lots of health challenges and other things. But she was never a quitter. She never gave up. She took IV chemo even when she was really not ready, so sure that she could take it. She was determined to be with the family as long as she could. And it seemed like as she was getting sicker and sicker, one of the key things that she was thinking about was a checklist, that she had a lot of things that she wanted to accomplish. She had a lot of things she wanted to finish vis-a-vis her family. She really wanted to make sure that her family had certain things that they needed, that they were taken care of, that they had certain discussions. And without those things, she did not want to leave this world at the time, any time earlier. And in particular, her beloved grandson, Matthew, she must have sat with him for hours, asking him lots of questions. And you wouldn't think, but she would ask him questions like, what are you going to do? What's your work going to be? And she also wanted to make sure that when the time came for a fraternity, that he would only pick a Jewish fraternity. These are the things on the mind of a lady who was very sick, didn't have a lot of energy, but this is, again, what she wanted to do. So, she had this unique relationship with her grandson, Matthew. And things kind of worked out in as good as possible way because, like I mentioned, 21 years ago, her dear husband passed away. But shortly after that, her grandson, Matthew, came along. And it was almost like a tremendous, beautiful thing to fill a very big fire, a very big hole in her life. And they had plenty of good times together. And because she was the kind of grandmother who was really hands-on, she would throw the ball, she would chase after him, she would get on the floor, play with the toys, whatever it took to have fun with her grandson, she would do. Sports, whatever. She was also a person who really believed so much in bringing the family together. She loved to see her children in front of her through the holidays, through the Seder, through Thanksgiving, through the Jewish holidays. And also, not to leave out, she had a very strong closeness with her daughter-in-law Lisa, and they were very close as far as always talking and bouncing ideas about one another. And that very often, Lisa, you would come to your mother-in-law and ask her for advice. We discussed already, she has a very good view out of the window. She has a very good view of how things should look and how things should be. And you guys often just, schmooze or kibitzed about, what would look best and what would be the right thing. And, last but not least, I think that one of the most important people to mention here is, Terry and Scott, who took great care of her. You guys were so good to her and so patient with her, and all the care and love that she gave to you all over the years, you guys gave back to her, and then some. And also, I think she was very, very fortunate to have her sister with her, Adrian, who we discussed started out as a little bit adventurous, a little bit rebellious to her, but you guys became the closest of friends. And the fact that the two families could live so close to each other, North Sedgwick and South Sedgwick, and really, really build a beautiful connection. And I know you guys really, really gave to her everything she could possibly need to make her life happy. She was a lady who gave a lot, and she was a lady who received a lot of beautiful gifts. So I just want to thank the family. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for sharing with me. And I really thank Ilean for being such an amazing woman and really showing us in life that you really can do so much, that you can really set the bar for your depth and your focus and your closeness, and you can really be all you want to be if you just try. So for some words, directly from her family, I now call upon her daughter, Terry.
Hello. I didn't bring reinforcements, so bear with me. A journey is defined as traveling from one point to another. There is no definitive time allotted for a journey. My mother's life was a journey full of life's dreams, expectations, and pitfalls. She was raised in a home, as Rabbi said, with deeply loving parents and a grandmother that taught her the rich Jewish faith. Her sister Adrienne and my mother grew up in raised families, all the while living but a few streets away. Our cousins David and Cheryl, along with my Aunt Adie and Uncle Dan, shared many a life's journeys with us. My mother embarked on a journey with her deeply devoted and hardworking husband, our father Nathan. Modest means dictated creative ways to have fun as a family, but always with the intent to ensure the understanding of respect and love. My mother forewent the typical Jewish social scene, and my brother Scott and I, along with our dad, was my mother's top priority. She truly was the ultimate homemaker. When Scott met his future bride, Lisa, she, along with her parents, were embraced and loved and became an integral part of our family. As the rabbi said, Lisa sought my mother's expert advice on a multitude of ideas and events, and my mother was thrilled beyond belief to advise Lisa. Last week, when my mother became so very ill and it was apparent that that was going to be her last Seder, Lisa took it upon herself to make the entire Seder dinner and bring it bedside to Hospice House, and that will be something that we will forever be thankful for. That was a special Seder for us. My mom's journey and dreams of a long life with her beloved Nate was abruptly cut short in 1996 when he passed away. This was an insurmountable journey, void of the love of her life. She continued on with the journey of life, and lo and behold, a new man came into her life, her beloved grandson, Matthew. Matt took her on a journey of indescribable companionship and love. These feelings were obviously mutual, and Matt now never left her side at my mom's end of her journey. 2 years ago, my mom was handed another journey ticket. Over the last 2 years, my mom took me and my family on a journey that was something out of a movie. My mom met every challenge these past 2 years with courage, trepidation, and determination. Every new challenge and treatment was met with a contest. My mom was determined to win, and win she did for 27 months. So here the journey ends, but a new journey for my mom in heaven is starting. Our family has weathered a journey by staying committed to each other. My mom and her sister Adie, special bond was highlighted by my aunt's daily calls, her daily cheering her on, and what we call liquid gold, which was her homemade egg salad that my mom could only eat at the very end, one of the 2 things that she could eat at the end. That's what gave her substance and the motivation to move on. To my critical care transport family, I know you're out there. When my mother adored and embraced you, she watched you grow from boys to men. She got terrific amusement in hearing who was working each day. She would ask me every single day who was working, whether I was working or not. I guess it didn't really matter if I was working, but she wanted to know which of her boys were working. She loved you. She got a kick out of the daily drama that went on in the department. You have all been a part of her 2-year journey as well. One that deeply touches me. You have no idea how appreciative and how fortunate we are to know you. Your love, support, homemade chocolate cake, homemade matzo ball soup helped our darkest days. To my Poling law family, your support, friendship, and caring despite the miles made me realize how fortunate we are to know such caring individuals. To all our friends that showed up with homemade chicken soup, homemade noodles, hand-delivered in a blizzard, that will never be forgotten. All of our friends are their true friendship. That's a true friend. We are deeply appreciative to all my mother's healthcare providers on this journey. The hope and dignity they gave to my mother and our family will forever be ingrained in our hearts. So rest, my beautiful mother, just for a little while, because you have a new journey awaiting. Thank you.
So I call upon Scott, her son, for a few words.
Mom, it's so hard to try and express my feelings and love for you in such a short letter like this. So I chose to use each word carefully to describe what a special, loving person you were and how I felt about you. I recall growing up when I was very young that you constantly taught me the right way and never the wrong way of doing just about anything. You made me learn the importance of what it took to accomplish something new almost every day in my life. And if I didn't, I heard about it. I will always cherish your wisdom and your constant guidance that you gave to me. No matter what the situation was, you always made time for me, no matter what you were busy doing, both day and night. Just yesterday, when I was over at your house getting some things ready for today, for Shiva, I was cleaning an old coffee maker that I hadn't seen probably in 30 years. The first thought that came over me was Mom would have been able to easily tell me where it was purchased from, how much she paid for it, and even the time and day when she bought it. Mom had this incredible database of past knowledge and history of relatives and just about any other aspects of life. I know these past couple years were very difficult and challenging for you, but you never stopped trying and never gave up your desire and hope to keep going on. I will always admire and love you for everything that you gave to your family. I will also miss you very much and will never stop thinking about you, especially around that 6:30 p.m. time when I looked at the clock and will call you after your dinner was over and say goodnight and tell you that I loved you.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ונם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם. עוד בתוכנו אורות אליך מבהיקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך et haderech. As we live our days, these are the ways. We remember, we remember.
At this time in the Jewish calendar, as we know, it's the day right after Passover, and that because it's still a semi-festive time, we don't say the traditional memorial prayer, El Mali Rachamim. And sometimes you think it's almost meant to be. I can't help but thinking someone like Ilean wouldn't want us to cry too much or to be too sad. She'd want us to be strong for us. And so we're not going to offer the final memorial prayer. After today's service, we're going to carry on in a procession of vehicles onto the cemetery, and we will be going to the Mount Aleph Cemetery. And following the cemetery and the interment, there will be Shiva at the Kulkin residence, which is 1018 Ledgewood Trail in Lyndhurst. And this will be today, Wednesday, following the burial until 8 p.m. And there will be a special Mincha afternoon service occurring at 7:30 p.m. tonight. And then tomorrow, the Shiva will be from 2 to 4 and 6 to 8. And then also be a special afternoon prayer service at 7:30. And then finally, the family will be completing Shiva on Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. No one is obligated to give any contributions, but if people are inclined, they can give to the Seidman Cancer Center in honor of Ilean Kulkin, or to the Hospice of the Western Reserve. At this point, I ask everyone to please rise. We're going to first have the pallbearers come forward. And our tradition is that we're going to allow the casket and our beloved Ilean to go first in position, and then we will follow behind and escort her out. Thank you today for all the speakers and the contributors, and together we will all cherish the beautiful memories that we have of Ilean, and forever pray and honor her in thinking and in saying that her memory will always be for a blessing.